I have to say that the older I get, the more convinced I am of the need for revolutionary socialism. This society is destructive, rotten, and has to be swept away. There is a tiny minority who are doing well, and the vast majority, where there's a range of incomes, from those who are completely destitute, impoverished, to those that might have a reasonable income but are working many hours a day, perhaps 2 jobs. Technology is not used to improve the position of workers, but to imprison them even more for their bosses, the owners of capital. We need a new society in which people can become human, truly human, really human, for the first time in a long time since what's been called communism or primitive communism, when people didn't have all the technology that we have at the moment. There was no private property. Property was in common, but it was on a much lower level of production than we have now. But what that period of a hunter-gatherer society shows is that the main argument that is used against communists is a wrong argument. It's all very well in theory, but human nature, it wouldn't work. Arguments about human nature are very easy to confront. The way that we relate to one another, the way we think, the way we act, is a consequence of the way that society is organized. If we change the way that society is organized, we begin to change the way that we think, the way that we relate to one another, the way that we treat one another. And all the old crap, as Marx put it, disappears. Where everybody worked, if they could, to the extent that they can, and where everybody is a worker, nobody is a boss, you have no class differences. It begins to change the whole way that you look at life. People could do all sorts of things that they've never dreamt of, which are, for the most part, the privilege of the elite and the children of the elite. They have access to all sorts of things that our children don't have access to. If communists put forward their arguments boldly and confidently and with passion and with vigor and enthusiasm, we can persuade not just a few, but many millions, if not billions of people across the world, that a new society is not only necessary, but possible. And the only impediment for that possibility becoming a reality is because people aren't conscious of their own working class power, the power of the international working class. The question then arises, well, if it's so easy, if it could be so easy, why haven't we achieved it? And of course, there's 2 processes taking place in society. There's the ideology of the ruling class, which tries to imprison us to think that things are static, that it's always been like this, that it can't change, that you're wasting your time, just knuckle down, make a living, get on, get some sleep, get up, go to work the next day, and so on. But then there's the experience of the working class, which refuses to lie down, which refuses to accept its exploitation. But those ideas, the ideas of the alternative system, the ideas of communism, as Marx and Engels developed them, don't come inevitably. If it was an inevitable consequence, if it was an inevitable conclusion that all workers, from their exploitation, from their degradation, from their oppression, automatically became communists and automatically understood what was needed, then things would have changed 100 years ago or more. But that's not the case. And what we need is those people who have been fortunate enough to understand the possibilities of a new society and how to achieve that new society. Those people, those of us on this call, many other people in different countries around the world, we have to organize to try to take those ideas of fundamental, of revolutionary change to other members, other sections of the working class. So many Marxists that I've come across in the labour movement, I'm talking about Britain, I assume it's the same elsewhere, when it comes to arguments, I'll take the last 5 years in the Labour Party, when it comes to arguments in the trade unions, I've been to many, when it comes to arguments on the picket line or in the pub, Marxists have this terrible tendency to argue other people's arguments. Most of the Marxists have argued for what I call a reformist program. And their argument is, if you put forward your Marxist ideas, if you put forward your Marxist program, you'll never get anywhere. Well, my answer to that is very simple. If you don't put them forward, you'll never get anywhere, because all you're doing is building the arguments for other people whose arguments cannot achieve a single thing. They've swallowed Thatcher and Reagan's ideas that there is no alternative. Sorry for that, Tina. There is an alternative. It's the alternative of communism. So what do? First of all, we can start by calling ourselves communists or socialists, if you like, but explaining what we mean. Communist Manifesto, it starts off, it is high time that communists should openly, in the face of the whole world, publish their views, their aims, their tendencies, and meet this nursery tale of the spectre of communism with a manifesto of the party itself. 175 years later, we're still asking Marxists, please don't hide your ideas. We're trying to open up a discussion on the ideas of Marxism. I'm sure there are going to be differences. That's not a problem. We can debate as comrades any differences. That's how we get clarity. We can, through a clash of ideas, we can get clarity about how we go forward. What was the nature of the Soviet Union? Well, as Ian said, it certainly isn't or wasn't socialism. There are very many competing theories. Does it matter? I don't think so, in terms of what we're trying to do now, so long as we understand that it's not or wasn't socialism, that these discussions are not academic. And what Marx and Engels explained was that ideas, they can't achieve anything on their own. But if they grip the masses, they become a material force. And that's what brings about change. And that's what we've got to set our sights on. If we can build serious points of support, we can enthuse people. I hope that out of these discussions, we can bring together people who share the ideas that we've all spoken about and understand what Marx and Engels devoted their whole lives to. And that was the idea that the emancipation of the working class has to be the act of the working class itself. And in order to achieve that emancipation, the working class has to create its own political party with its own clear program for change. We support workers in struggle. We take up discussions on the picket line. We say, how can we help you win? But more importantly, in my position, is how can we together put an end to this daily rigmarole of constantly battling to defend what we won in the past, which is being taken away from us again and again and again. We have to find a way of ending this constant circle of struggle, defeat, struggle, minor victory, end the system and end the need for struggle.